Hello readers, active and passive. Welcome to Dino's Reading Corner. I am Dino Fumanisa, a reader, a thinker, a yapper. And today's video is not a book review, but anything and everything can be a book review if you believe yourself enough. So today I want to talk about hair. And before we get into that, like I said, welcome to this channel. And if you're new, I hope you'll subscribe and like. And for everyone who's joining me again, thank you. Love you loads. So yeah, welcome. Be safe, be calm, we'll think, we'll critically think. There's no fighting, we're just thinking. Yeah, well, so yeah, I just came from work and this was like a burning topic that I got home. I started writing all these things and then I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna shoot a video right now. So if the sun is setting, just know the time right now is like 4 o'clock. Yeah, it's actually 4. And if we're losing light, guys, tranquilo, I'll just make sure that I put in videos that you don't see my face in dark lighting. So yeah. Right, so now let's get started, right? So how did I think about this topic? So I'll give you 3 foundational things that have come to mind when it comes to hair. The first one being an episode of Third Degree that I watched when I was in grade 8. And there, Debbie was talking about how Black women and their relationship with hair is rooted in having to assimilate to the white standard. And that is as a result of colonization, right?
Welcome to Third Degree. Join us here in my hair salon, the place I come to each week to prepare for the show. Hair is such an important part of our identity. We spend an inordinate amount of time and money on it, and it's not just about looking good. It says something about us. Whether we color it, straighten it, or make it curly, it is intimately connected to our self-image. For Black women, it's an even more complex issue. Natural hair versus the weave. It may sound frivolous, but that frivolity belies a far deeper issue. It's about race, about Western versus African ideals, and about exactly what defines beauty. It can potentially make you stand out from the crowd. One of our most noticeable features. Billions spent on it every year. But it is just hair, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, my hair is like my crowning glory. I think any woman will tell you that.
I love my natural hair. I mean, it's been quite a journey for me to get to a stage where I'm able to express myself in that way.
I think for Black women, we've always had to negotiate our beauty around media, around white standards, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable.
We can't discover a cure for AIDS, but we know how to straighten Black people's hair? I mean, really? Like, really?
And you have Black women in the workplace trying to assimilate. It's not their fault, but how this is still perpetuated to younger generations, even though they don't know what apartheid was like, you know? Cool, that was the first thing. And I remember how she mentioned how Black women will buy weaves and spending so much money to try and do their best to assimilate, and even go as far as risking harm to their scalps using lye, which is such a dangerous chemical. I remember Tyra Banks did this demonstration in a show where she melted a can, like a Coca-Cola can, with the thing that we put on our scalp, human skin, you know?
There's a classic chemistry experiment that involves sanding the paint off a soda can and then immersing the soda can in a solution of sodium hydroxide. The sodium hydroxide solution is extremely basic and very corrosive. The sodium hydroxide reacts with the aluminum in the can, dissolving it away. If the reaction runs long enough, the aluminum completely dissolves away and exposes a plastic inner lining. The inner lining doesn't react with the sodium hydroxide.
So I think of those things, and I think after that, I was like, no, goodbye hair, that's relaxed. I am going to be an Afro-girly. And I started seeking out content on the internet, like those Pinterest boards about, okay, yeah, Black girl magic, Black is beautiful, things like that. And how that formed a key value of mine to say, I need to be proud of being African, I need to be proud of being Black, and being true to that, you know? So yeah, that was like from a young age, actually. Geez, that just goes to show how the things that kids are exposed to really influence them in life, you know? So that's the first thing. And the second thing was the guy who was slapped by Will Smith having his documentary about black girls and, you know, talking about the same things, the dangers that women put themselves through to assimilate to this wide standard of beauty and the dangers in that. At the same time, that for me, that foundation was already formed, but now having these experts come on the show is like, oh yeah, this is a multi-billion industry trying to get women to be insecure about their hair, and like this comes from weaves. Back in the, it's like the exploitation of this to exploit some people's insecurities as well, like from the Indian women who are giving up their hair to the black woman who is tricked to spend their money on relaxers and weaves. I found that so fascinating. I was like, oh my gosh, imagine how much we could bankrupt the system if just people just accepted that, you know what, I'm beautiful as I am. And yeah, I just realized as I'm saying this how idealistic it is. But anyway, the third thing, which is the key thing that I'm basing this video on, is Western standards of beauty and how important looks are to their culture. Okay, fine. So starting with that, I just need to start here. My family, my granny especially, loves the royal family. My granny is obsessed with the English royal family, guys. Her second name is Elizabeth. She keeps telling me that her son, my uncle, is the same age as Prince William. So when I tell you that she's obsessed with the royal family, like, believe you me. Like when Prince William got married, we were there watching. She was at work. She tuned in to watch the entire wedding with William and Kate. And we're at home too. We tuned in and I was like, oh, okay, fine. This is, you know, just in jail. We like the English culture, and I like the English culture. At the same time, I was like, okay, fine. As a result, I consumed everything. When it came to You or People magazine, I was there, like looking at the standards, like, okay, fine. This is how Kate needs to curtsy when she's talking to the queen. This is how the length of the skirt. This is how she should shape her nails. This is how she should style her hair. Guys, the dress code, there's everything down to hairstyle, eyelashes, nails, the shoes you can wear, the hats you can wear, the designers that you can, you know, you can use to style for you. Like, guys, it was everything down to the minute detail of your brooch, the buttons that you have, the type of zips, everything, every accessory, down to the last minute detail. For the royal family, it's planned, you know. So I remember thinking that's like such a fascinating thing, but that's as far as I got. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Until I got to the UK. When I was in first year of my articles, 2022, I went to the UK as part of secondment, right? And I remember thinking, wow, Europe really prides itself on its history, you know, because 90% of buildings I saw there were historic buildings. You are walking on the street and you're saying, oh yeah, Victorian something. This is because it's like paying homage to heroes of back in the day for them, you know. So I was just thinking, like, even looking at an H&M shop, that geez, this is such a historic building, and these people take great pride in their culture and their past. I remember talking to this guy in the team that I was in who was giving us a lowdown of UK culture. So he said, do not talk about politics, do not criticize the royal family or the Queen especially in front of English people, but you can't do that in front of Irish or Scots people because they hate the royal family. And he said to me, you need to know how important the English royal family is because these people are the epicenter of English culture. And I just want to repeat that. The royal family is at the epicenter of British culture, and they are the holders and protectors of this culture. Not just in terms of tourism for British people. They are saying we look up to these people for embracing our culture and showcasing our culture to the world. To look at the royal family is to look at the culture of the British people in terms of being stoic, not showing your emotion, things like, you know, tea. And I know it's a very classist system, but I'm just saying, at the very best, they'd want to aim for that standard set by the royal family, you know? So I realized only then how deep it is. People take the lead from the family. At all times, they need to reflect English values that the whole country can look up to. And guys, if you think this only applies for the English royal family, you'd be sorely mistaken. Every politician or public figure needs to be cognizant of the message that they send out. And this includes not just what they say or put out to the media, but how they present themselves. If you think of president and prime ministers in office and how much scrutiny the first ladies face, you realize how much of a political statement is contained in how people choose to dress themselves. These people have media people in the room when they get dressed. Have you ever watched Veep? Girl, every single thing, down to the tie, down to the brooch that they have on their coat, is a heavily considered fashion choice. That's why when one British minister failed to wear the poppy flower in remembrance of the poppy deaths, people were raking him through the coals in the media. That's why the fashion choice from Melania Trump to have that quality, we don't care, that wasn't a mistake. There were media people to say, hey, do you know how this is gonna look? And she said yes, and I back it. It was not a mistake. She was sending out a message, a clear-cut message. I don't care. Mind you, there were like kids suffering. People were going through the most. Melania went there and it's like, I don't care. Guys, even when we were at the inauguration of Donald Trump, the way she was just dressed in a hat that was covering her eyes, she's like, damn it, I'm back here again. Oh, I know that girl is suffering. She's like, I'm a baddie who just came for a good time. Not this. Now I have to be a first lady to a whole entire country, like, and reflect their morals and cultures. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not want this. Even Christmas Day, guys, you have to think of like the political implication of the treaty chose. And this one year, she just chose white. It's like, I don't care about kids. I don't care. But anyway. So when I consider how political looks and fashion are, I can't help but be disappointed on how our African prominent figures take it lightly. For example, they don't care about the historical context of the things that they choose to wear. They'll wear designers for countries that oppressed them previously, especially Mugabe. Like, you, sir, I thought you were the African revolutionary, but no, that guy used to fly to Italy too. I'm like, you're not even trying to bring up young designers in your own country. Just in living to another continent in. But anyway, so I am disappointed by, African figures. So last year, I was watching the Day of Prayer on TV, and across all these political figures, the religious leaders, the business people in attendance, not a single woman came in her natural hair. And again, you don't have to have your afro out, but there's so many African hairstyles you could have chosen from, but they went for top and weaves. And here is why I need to bring nuance. I am not against black women wearing wigs. If you do so out of insecurity out of how you look in your natural hair, or you're doing it out to save money because braids are very expensive, I would know. It doesn't matter. You're doing it and I'm not criticizing you. But at the same time, it is very important to note that it's not really your choice that you're wearing a wig. The amount of influence media has had, being colonized, and black people having to assimilate in certain spaces so that they can be accepted and not seen as a threat forms part of this. You are not doing this out of choice to say, oh, I don't think I like my hair. It has been deep programming for you to believe that your natural hair is not beautiful in its natural state. And you need to manipulate it to get to a point where you think that this is acceptable and that this is something that people will be comfortable with around you. It is not really your choice. The maintenance of African hair, afros in particular, is not as onerous as we've been led to believe. For people who have worn their hair out for centuries and have developed protective hairstyles, this is not something that is actually as hard as it's made out to be. But to say that this is hard, it is hard to maintain your hair, that was a politically charged statement that was put out to the masses so that they can assimilate. And when people back in the day wanted to embrace black beauty, it was a very politically charged statement that was revolutionary. I'm thinking of Fred Hampton and back in the days of Black Panthers and how everyone had their afro out. It was a political statement. I think we just lost the knowledge in maintaining our hair because of the political agenda that was pushed all this time. These natural hairstyles are often looked down on and not seen as professional or slick compared to having a wig. I remember a problematic influencer on TikTok joking about girlies in their natural hair not being able to sit with her in the club, and I liken them to men, mind you, if they're in their natural hair, and people use that as a funny sound clip with other videos in different contexts without digging deep in the context of how problematic that is. Only a few creators went on to say, actually this is a problem, but by and large people took that as a joke, and I was shocked. It's like, Aibo, how is this funny, you know?
You can't join my table. Why ubuza londo? Ingakhiyo. You can't join my table ne afro yako, babe. Join amanik.
It is extremely disappointing to see these prominent leaders thoughtlessly wear wigs because it's the thing that will denote wealth and class more than their natural hair. when there are mothers at home trying to teach their young girls to love how they look. If our own prominent figures can do it, people with that amount of influence, imagine how inconceivable that would be for a child. And it is extremely disappointing when you consider the young girls who took up this fight in the school to say, hey, I'm proud of my hair, it's not a dress code violation, and American artists and influencers paid more homage to that girl and those girls in Pretoria Girls High who were fighting for this good fight compared to most South African political figures. And even if they paid lip service to that, they're not actually living and embodying that in their own look. So like how much are we supposed to take from your words to say, oh yeah, we support those kids in that school, but you yourself are not wearing your natural hair out? It's like, guys, you know, put your money where your mouth is, basically. And to be honest, I'm not saying that natural hair girlies are without sin. The natural hair movement that took place in the early 2010s, where black girl magic was in the air, wasn't inclusive of all hair types and textures. When we talk about embracing your curls, you better hope to hell that you have loose curls and a soft hair texture. You better hope your fro is long enough for you to be considered a Nubian queen instead of having a natural hair type that is like 4C. I remember when Blue Ivy was made fun of by the black community, by a woman in the black community, and she was just a child, versus how people like Yara Shahidi will be celebrated for having those types of hair, like someone who is biracial, you know? So anyway, back to the point at hand. How come prominent women in South Africa show their hair few and far in between? How come the default look for being made up and professional includes wigs versus African hairstyles? And being in a hairstyle remotely black is considered ghetto. I remember Minnie Lamini tweeting about how ghetto she can be because she was in Bantu Notes. I was like, girl, what? Looking at that tweet, I can assure you, the furthest thing from my mind was to cause offense and for her to say that black is beneath and black is inferior, which exactly proves my point. The inferiority complex of afros and having protective hairstyles is so deeply embedded in our psyches that her doing that Bantu not hairstyle, protective hairstyle, she deemed it as ghetto. It's thoughtless, but that's her subconscious. That's deep in her psyche to say, yo, if I'm dressed like this out of my wig, that basically looks like I'm a ghetto thug. Because like, after the work that people are trying to do at that time to promote love for black people and their black hair, like, guys, coming with nuance here, most of the prominent figures we have were born in the old days of oppression, so I can understand the years of bullying they had to face from their teachers to see this as normal. I'm speaking as someone who was born after apartheid ended and still faced racism in school when it came to hair plus skin tone. Lighter skinned people were praised by non-black teachers, while the darker skinned kids were considered less than pretty. And girl, I felt this most sharply because I was one of 3 kids from the same family at school, and our non-black teachers made it a point to be like, oh my gosh, are you sure this is your sister and this is not your aunt's sister? Because they were both light skinned and I was a different tone. I was like, okay. Literally 12 years of my life, I only noticed in varsity. People had to point it out to me in varsity, mind you. People had to point out in varsity to me, it's like, you know that dog, calm down. I was like, the way it was like I was like as black as a pot in the fire in the school I was in. And I can imagine how they faced something on a worse extent when they were in those schools, because yeah, it was during legalized oppression and racism. Imagine. So for me to even have embraced that hair, and then we got those nicknames called Lion King. My friends, no, they will remember. Like, we were called Lion King, guys, if you wanted to have your hair out. And I was like, it's giving racism, because what the hell is this?
Hello readers, Editor Dino here. For the next clip, I want to marry the issues in the colored community versus the teacher that we had in our school. So in primary school, I grew up with colored teachers, and they were the teachers who were like most dominant in my life. And I want to note that I really love them a lot. I love them. They were instrumental in believing that I'm very smart and I have leadership qualities. At the same time, they were instrumental in how I saw myself as ugly, skin tone wise, and actually hating my hair because of the internalized hate and racism that they had. And again, I love those teachers, and yeah, I can't critique much about the colored community. I'll actually put in a video from a TikTok creator whose consent I got to include her clip in my video essay. And yeah, so I am going to include people from the colored community to talk about how they've experienced beauty in the colored community, and I'm not going to do much of that. Enjoy.
Called the K word by my family members. So let's talk about the anti-blackness in the colored community. It still exists in certain parts of the country. It is a lot worse than other parts. Please listen to comprehend and don't listen to respond. Okay? I'm going to start with some anecdotes from my own life as a darker skinned colored person with type 4 hair. Let's start with hair. My hair is type 4. Having hair like mine has never been the aspiration in the colored community. Our hair carries a lot of weight in the colored community, and all you have to do is look at the responses that people still, until today in 2024, still have a response to newborn babies like this. They take off the little hat to see what the hair looks like. Now, I used to be called Kruskop and all of the names. Just imagine what it took for me to get here. I started my natural hair journey in 2014, somewhere there. I got so many questions. What are you doing? Hoekom lyk jou hare so de mekaar? Hoekom kam jy nie jou koppie? Basically, asking me, why is my hair unkept? The second thing is my skin tone. Now, a lot of people will be like, you're not that dark skinned. But coming from a colored community that is obsessed with skin color, yes, I was also a lot more in the sun when I was younger, so I was darker. This is something that I only realized when I left the community of George that I grew up in. I was called the K word by my family members. It was basically the word K and then add the word poplap, which is a term of endearment. I knew it had reference to my skin color, but I didn't know that the K word was a bad word. So when I left the community, and at some point I remembered that I was called that, it was such a jarring experience. I also was told when I was a kid, stay out of the sun, you're gonna get dark.
Said Western politics got every single detail from the people who represent them. Yeah. So Barack Obama was the first black president. Barack Obama, with the Muslim name, would not have been in office had Michelle been her true self of being in braids and wear her hair out. In office, if you're part of a minority, you better hope to hell you're perfect and nothing can count against you. There's even rhetoric of him not being born in America to prevent him from running. So that's how deep this is. So Michelle having hair silky and blown out while her husband was in office isn't something that was a mistake or a coincidence. They had to be so aligned to whiteness to assimilate so that they could not be viewed as a threat at all. And now that she's out of office, and it's been years she's been out of office, now you can see her true colors. Michelle Obama said, girl, I'm tired and I'm going to show you who I am. Michelle Obama didn't go to Trump's inauguration. Michelle Obama didn't go to the funeral that was there beginning of the session. She was like, no, auntie. And I felt that's like, oh my gosh, brave, because she's choosing herself. And she's that, and I know for a fact I'm off Twitter, but I remember thinking, when I saw her podcast episode with the brother, and she was wearing like braids, unapologetically black braids. Even the way she styled them, she was like, I'm from Southside Chicago, what you go do? The nails, the rings, the chains, never seen before. Not even when they're on vacation, babes. She was like, I'm black and you gonna see. I remember thinking, flip, Twitter must be having a field day, and I wasn't there and I was so sad. I was like, okay. And then when I went to check online for articles, I remember someone having an article about, oh yeah, Michelle Obama is black, and I was like, I knew it. Imagine what the white supremacists are saying on Twitter, okay, the people who are racism. Like, guys, oh, I felt it deep in my heart. The girl is tired and she's done. So how black women put themselves out there and how they are perceived is such a political thing. And I wish that South African influencers and prominent figures took it as seriously as American prominent figures do. And it's so disappointing that they don't. Oh my gosh. So why this video essay? A plea for prominent women in media and in South Africa to know the power they hold, to know how much they can influence young girls, to realize how many young girls look up to them as role models, and to behave as such. If you're in politics or your husband is, you are a representation of South Africa. Key emphasis on the Africa part. Act like it. Let's see it with your clothes, your hair, the art and lifestyle you promote. Why do you have leaders who are still trying to assimilate to our former colonizers? I really want prominent figures to be as perceptive when it comes to the message they bring out of their clothes. Like people in Western countries are highly conscious and sensitive to everything, right down to the earrings. I don't think people realize how far and wide-reaching the effects of imperialism and colonial control still have on people, and I do think that is taken way too lightly here in South Africa. I want critical thinking in the public space. Betuna, when will we be free? I think of the Black is Beautiful campaigns previous liberation groups had, from Steve Biko to American freedom fighters, i.e. the Black Panther movement, and how the current political figures we now have are severely lacking in this regard. In fact, instead of promoting Black is Beautiful and, pride in being African, they are more concerned with policing women and policing young girls' bodies and shaming young girls under Christian rhetoric than saying, young girl, you're beautiful, you're smart, you can do this. What we see instead is like, if you get pregnant, it's your fault, baby girl. Yeah. So this is a video plea for critical thinking in the public space. Nothing more, nothing less. With love, Dino Manisa. And this one is short, guys. So it's really with love. Until next time, bye.